Welcome to Midlife Mayhem, the place where we stop blaming age, hormones, and a slow metabolism for everything, and we actually do something about it. I am Joanne Lee Cornish, former professional bodybuilder, body composition coach, and slightly obsessed midlife science nerd. My mission here is simple: to teach you the real physiology behind fat loss, muscle, hormones, and metabolism in midlife. Without the fluff, without the gimmicks, and without talking to you like you're fragile or that you are broken, because you are neither. I'll give you the exact science and strategy so that you can become the outlier, the one who looks and feels better at 50, 60 and beyond than you did in your 30s, while everyone else is calling it normal aging. And if you're listening and thinking, okay, that's great, but I don't want to just understand this, I want a plan, I want a coach in my corner, well, that is exactly what I do. I run online coaching programs, live classes, and I have an elite 10-month program starting in February. Simply go to joannelee.com or click the link in every show note. Okay, let's get started. What just happened with the FDA? Well, imagine you've been told for decades this hormone can raise your risk of stroke, it can increase your risk of dementia, heart attack, breast cancer. You know, you carry that label like you were handling a grenade or something. Even if your doctor thought it might help you, well, there was still this fear and this risk of even, talking about hormone replacement therapy. And well, just like that, it changed. Just like that. So the FDA just announced it is now pulling the big, scary warning off many of the HRT products for menopause. So today, in today's Midlife Mayhem podcast, we're going to unpack why they did it, what it means for midlife women, and the new non-hormonal pill that's about to hit the market. Because this isn't just about regulatory housekeeping, there's a potential shift about how we treat menopause and midlife hormonal health. So what is it that just happened? I took myself off social media for a month. It was so nice. But I put myself back on again half-heartedly in November. But yesterday it was all over my feed and all over the news. So what just happened? So here's the timeline. So for years, I'm talking decades, products used for menopausal hormonal therapy, think about systemic estrogen, progesterone, things like that, carried the FDA's top tier warning. So it's the top tier warning, which is the so-called black box warning. That warning flagged risks of cardiovascular disease, heart attack, stroke, certain cancers, breast cancer, blood clots, and dementia. Well, that's terrifying, isn't it? So, oh, here's your HRT, and it's got all these warnings all over it. And then on November the 10th, 2025, so that was yesterday, the FDA announced that they are requesting manufacturers of these hormone replacement products to update the labeling to remove or revise the boxed warning language, specifically those sections referencing cardiovascular disease, breast cancer, and probable dementia. Now, they're still going to keep a warning about endometrial cancer for estrogen alone systemic therapy. So it's not a full everything safe stamp, but it is a major, major recalibration. What is so ridiculous about this is the very things it's warning about, things like cardiovascular disease. The cardiovascular outcomes are actually improved with estrogen therapy. The risk isn't greater. Now, at the same time, and if you want to go down the conspiracy rabbit hole, feel free. But in parallel, the FDA also approved, or is in the process of approving, new treatments. So there's going to be a generic version of a widely used estrogen product, which is going to improve access. And then there's a brand new non-hormonal therapy for moderate to severe hormonal symptoms, for hot flashes and night sweats. So bring out a brand new non-hormonal therapy. And I've got to go. I know the company that was making that. I was looking at the stock price of that a few months ago, and I knew this was coming out. And if you want to be the conspiracy theorist, you would be like, well, that's just hunky dory. That's just nice and convenient, isn't it? When there's a new medication coming out and the FDA says, oh, okay, maybe we'll take those warnings off now. What do you think about that timing? But anyway, bottom line is the data has matured. Older warnings no longer reflect the current evidence, and in many cases, this is going to open a lot of doors. I did a podcast a few months ago, I think. Please go back and listen to that if you're curious about the history of HRT, because it's an absolute major mess. The one study, the Women's Health Initiative, which caused decades and decades and decades of terror and fear amongst women and health professionals because of a terrible study. It was a big study, but it was a terrible study. And the aftermath of that study has really, really impacted generations of ladies. I mean, anyway, so that has now we've got a good 20 years under our belt of new data. And some of the FDA, in their wisdom, have come to peace with that the old warnings, which weren't accurate anyway, definitely no longer reflect the current evidence. So let's break down the rationale. So the original boxed warnings stemmed largely from this study I was talking about, the Women's Health Initiative, which was in the early 2000s. And the problem with that study is the average age of the participant was in the 60s. So the average age of the participant was many years past menopause, and yet they were studying for premenopausal symptoms. So problem right there. So the risks found in older women were after menopause. So over time, further analysis has shown that if you initiate HRT within about 10 years of menopause onset or before around the age of 80, the risk profile is very, very different and much lower. Experts have concluded the broad black box label was overly generalized, frightening both women and providers. Now think about this. You've got the health professionals who take a lot of flack, but there's this big black box warning on HRT medications, and then you're expecting your health professional to eagerly suggest that you take these medications. I mean, they must have thought the legalities on this, how liable they were. It must have made them very worried, even if they truly believed in the efficacies of these medications. When there's a big old warning by the FDA on the medications, they must have been somewhat cautious when it came to their enthusiasm. So, the big black label, the big broad black box, like you try saying that, the broad black box label was frightening. It was frightening to women, and it was definitely frustrating at the very least to the health professionals and providers. So what happened there was there goes my phone. There was reduced uptake in therapies for symptoms that were impacting the quality of life. The FDA and the HHS has called this fear-based labeling, and I don't think they're wrong. So with modern research, delivery methods, and patient selection improving dramatically over the last few decades, I mean, we're using bioidentical hormones. We're using like transdermal and low dose vaginal estrogens for different symptoms. This one size fits all warning no longer makes sense. So again, in their wisdom, they've decided to update the labels to reflect the nuance. So in other words, they aren't saying HRT is risk-free, but they are saying that blanket major risk warning meant for older high-risk women doesn't apply in the same way for many of the midlife women today. Why is this a big deal? A big deal, it's a huge deal. So what's going to happen is more women and more providers are going to feel comfortable using HRT and suggesting HRT when appropriate. And especially when these ladies are in the early menopause window, within 10 years of menopause, because this was a psychological barrier of the psychological barrier of the black box is gone. And women might be more inclined to look at earlier treatment and not suffer years and years and years of symptoms before getting on HRT. And again, it's going to make the providers and the health professionals a lot more comfortable suggesting and encouraging patients to use HRT. Now you haven't got these big, ugly warnings on them. Also, it means for better symptom management. So we have hot flashes, we have night sweats, mood changes, sleep disruption, all of which impact your quality of life. And there's a lot of data which actually suggests the long-term health outcomes of dealing with years of hot flashes and night sweats and sleep disruption. It's going to foster a more personalized approach instead of that it being a bit taboo. you know, Women and their doctors are going to be able to focus on, which form is most appropriate, at what dose, when should we start having the conversation, when to stop, rather avoiding HRT altogether. It just opens the conversation in a much more individualized way. There's going to be the access and innovation with the generic versions of major estrogen products, plus this new non-hormonal option. There's going to be more choices. Now, the more choices means better tailoring, better outcomes, and a less one size fits all. And just don't underestimate the psychology of this. That label change sends a huge message that women's midlife hormonal health matters. And we aren't being left behind in the research and regulatory void. For the longest time, this has been ignored, it's been ostracized, and now by the FDA recognizing this, bringing it into present discussion, and changing the labeling, what it's saying is women's hormonal health matters. This whole age gracefully just deal with it, or I can do it myself, and all this lot. Maybe you can, and that's great. But the stigmatism for women that want help with hormonal menopausal symptoms, it gives them, a safe place for this discussion now. And that has been refused them for a long time. I mean, women who are already in a desperate state have actually had to fight to have an educated discussion with health providers. And I feel like that is going to really pivot. Okay, so let's talk about this new non-hormonal medication. So it is called Lynkuet, so Lynkuet. It is approved by the FDA in the US for moderate to severe vasomotor symptoms, that's the hot flashes and the night sweats. And this is what makes it interesting. So it's not hormone therapy. It doesn't deliver estrogen or progesterone. Instead, it works by antagonizing Neuralink and NK1, the receptors in the hypothalamus. So the brain's thermostat for vasomotor symptoms. So the whole hot flashes and night sweats is linked to changes in the brain's thermostat. Now, in more traditional therapy, estrogen therapy has helped with that. But what about people that don't want to take hormones because maybe the risk of hormonal cancers? Then now they have an option of a non-hormonal medication, which works on receptors directly in the hypothalamus. So in clinical trials, this new medication significantly reduced the frequency and the severity of hot flashes. And by doing so, it improved the sleep quality of women. I think that the test ranges were between 40 and 65. Now, considering that 85% of ladies going through menopause will suffer from hot flashes and night sweats, this significantly reducing the frequency and severity are pretty key words here, because I think of all us ladies that have suffered that that poor sleep quality for so many years is incredibly disruptive, and definitely impairs our health on different levels. So to improve those hot flashes and the night sweats just simply means you can get more sleep. The benefits just ricochet through a lady's life. So again, it's going to be an option for women who either can't take HRT, maybe there's a history of estrogen sensitive cancers, or maybe there's a history of blood clots, or simply, somebody that wants to avoid hormones. That's very valid. So important caveats here. This drug is relatively new on the market. They're saying you should definitely monitor liver enzymes, because there was a similar drug did have some rare liver injury. I forget the details on that, but that's why. Now, here's the other thing. The cost may be high. So I was reading something like $600 a month wholesale. I know they were talking about some sort of assistant programs, which might bring that down, but that number is what really pees me off. If you've got a lady really suffering and it's going to be, and I don't know whether insurance is going to kick in on that or what, but that's a new drug with a patent on it and a very hefty price tag. So let's see where the chips fall on that one. But it is a new therapeutic landscape. So HRT with updated labeling and this non-hormonal medication just is improving choices. And I would say long term, it's going to improve the landscape dramatically, because if you don't have these nasty warnings, then other medications and other modalities could maybe be researched, because it's just a conversation that's now worth having. Now, what does this mean? How do you want to frame this in regards to your journey? So let's just recap. The um, If you've been avoiding HRT because you think it's too risky, it's too dangerous, maybe it's time now to revisit the conversation with your health provider. And you might find that that health provider, that health professional that was so resistant to you using it, may now have a different tune to sing. Now, especially if you're within 10 years of menopause, and especially, of course, if you're having troublesome symptoms, I think this is really going to encourage ladies to seek out help before they're desperate. I mean, I see far too many women having the conversation when they're 55, when they probably should have been having the conversation when they were 45. So I'm hoping it's going to help a lot of ladies and help them sooner. Should everyone jump in? You still need, to personalize your risk benefit discussion. family history, cardiovascular risk, liver health, cancer history, any of those things are relevant to you. For women that don't want HRT or are contraindicated, so there's this new hormonal, non-hormonal option could be a valid pathway. So some symptom relief without taking hormones, which might resonate with some of you. What I also think that this could mean, because now they've basically opened the conversation to saying women's health matters. Women's hormones matter because up until now it was almost like that women's hormonal shift didn't mean anything. Like it wasn't a real conversation to have. Well, now I feel like they're qualifying that to say that actually does. Well, what that could then lead to is, a broader paradigm shift here. So hormonal therapy becomes, more nuanced, less scary blanket, more tailored. Also, it might lead to, you know, greater conversations and the importance of hormonal therapy regarding body composition, which I still feel people like we're not meant to care about that. We're just meant to accept it and even celebrate and just deal with body composition changes in midlife. And maybe by this one decision by the FDA, maybe that opens, just makes people think that, the hormonal changes in body composition are important. We're meant to think that they're not. We're meant to just deal with it and they're not really important. We're just being vain. But they are important. And body composition changes do impact our our feelings of self and how we actually show up in society. So as a recap, the FDA pulled back the black box label for many hormone therapies for menopause. They had more data. They reviewed that. I mean, they have literally decades worth of data. They were dragging their heels, but and they admit, I don't know, but they are stating that the risk profile is very, very different, and than it was when the Women's Health Initiative back in the 2000s. Non-hormonal pill is hitting the market, might be an option. Let's see what happens with the price on that. But generally, it just means there's going to be more options, more personalizations, and just more conversations. So if you're a lady struggling with symptoms, hot flashes, night sweat, disrupted sleep, this is great news for you. This is an opportunity to go and have a new conversation. And I personally, and this is my personal take on it, don't wait. Don't wait till my last program, Lady 56, Lady 58. Don't wait to have that conversation. Get educated as soon as possible. I mean, be prepared. Just today, I was writing my program outline for a new program I'm going to do next year, which is called A Perfect 10. It's a 10-month coaching program for just 10 people. And I was stressing in that. I was stressing in that personally, I went through menopause. Probably for me, it started at 44, got through it by 53, say, but I mean, 9 years. And my body composition, apart from a little bit of loose skin, is probably better than it was when I entered menopause. Now, that's not because I'm an outlier. It's not because I'm a genetic freak. It's not because I'm some 1% of the population. It's because I was very, very prepared. I was very educated. I knew what was going to happen. I mean, I didn't know what it was going to feel like, but when things were happening, I knew what was happening. I knew what to do with it. I absolutely knew how to enter premenopause, and that's a big, big, big deal. I knew what changes to make. I knew what to emphasize, what to prioritize, and I was able to come through menopause. I didn't gain any weight, actually lost weight, and actually came out probably with better body composition. So this is all from being prepared and educated, and too many women are waiting too long to get that education and to get that support. So if nothing else from this major news this week, ladies, be open to this discussion and don't wait to have the discussion. Now, A Perfect 10 program I'm talking about, I've got a new website getting built. It isn't even on my website right now. It's a brand new program. And if you're interested in it, please email me at joanne@joannelee.com. But this is a high-level mentorship program for only 10 women. So it's going to be fully immersive with two really extraordinary retreats, which I'm looking forward to. One-on-one coaching, group coaching, nutrition, training, supplementation, the most immersive coaching I will have ever done in my 3 decades of doing this, but it will only be available for 10 people. So it's called A Perfect 10 because it's a 10-month program for 10 people so they can be a perfect 10. Excited to coach it. It will be starting in February, but there are only 10 places. And if you're listening to this and you want more information, please email me, joanne@joannelee.com, and let's set up a time to talk because there are only 10 places. Okay, that's it for now. Exciting time. Thanks for listening to Midlife Mayhem. And remember, midlife isn't something to be scared of, but it is something to be respected. It's not the decline that everybody expects, it's the opportunity to take full control. And it's actually the final and last real opportunity that we have to become an outlier in midlife and beyond. If you're ready to do that with me, join one of my live coaching programs, do one of my self-study programs, or apply for the 10-month elite program, which starts in February. Head over to joannelee.com or email me directly at joanne@joannelee.com. Thanks so much for joining me today.